empathy.
It is the goal of every good writer to extract empathy from their audience. It is that magical feeling you get when you watch a story you connect with. And in this video, you'll find the secret method that writers use to make you empathize with these characters. You'd think it'd be a crazy complicated technique, but it's actually quite simple. It's actually more surprising on how many people get it wrong.
But do not let its simplicity fool you.
This technique is so powerful that even when executed poorly, it can still grab empathy, or at the very least,
sympathy
from a wide audience. Now, what even is this magical empathy machine that I speak of? Well, trauma. But writers like to call it the core wound because it's best to only have one, usually. But I've actually started taking a liking to calling a different name though. I'll explain why in a moment, but before that,
I have to explain how people mess up this technique.
On a wide subconscious scale, we all kind of have an intuitive feeling that the protagonist should experience some sort of trauma in their backstory to make the audience go, wow. I wasn't the only one that had a bad time when my uncle took me fishing, but because they aren't really all that aware of what they're doing and why they're doing it, they execute it poorly. And just by watching this video, you are already remedying the problem as both the audience and the writers watching are both being made aware of it. The next part of how people fail with the core wound is only giving it to the protagonist when everyone in the main cast should realistically have one. Because as if making the protagonist the only one who's experienced trauma in the world
Wouldn't it all make them feel like the center of the universe?
The next common error when it comes to the execution is how it is presented. You actually don't need to show it at the beginning of the story, but you do need to imply that it is there from the beginning. Some examples that follow what I've already talked about is David from Cyberpunk Edgerunners and Denji from Chainsaw Man. But the thing is, neither of those two actually utilize their core wound to its fullest potential. Now, it's not like these two examples don't cause empathy for a wide audience, because A, other aspects of these characters do the heavy lifting, and B, a lot of the audience has pretty low standards. I just mean that for anime in general and the film industry too.
Mostly because they haven't watched that much media and lack a lot of story theory knowledge.
Which brings me to why I prefer to call core wound by a different name.
Ghost.
Calling it ghost instead of core wound implies the biggest aspect that writers miss when writing the core wound, and that is how the main trauma should haunt the protagonist. I know some of you Chainsaw Man fans will point out that Denji's core wound does haunt him in his dreams, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want this haunting aspect to be ambiguous. Going back to the uncle example, you can't just say because of the fishing trip, the core wound haunts the inside of the character's poop chute as a defense to why it doesn't affect the story. And that's what I mean by haunting. It should have heavy influence on the character's flaw and decision making and dilemma. And the characters that represent this perfectly are Revy from Black Lagoon, Spike and Faye from Cowboy Bebop, Guts from Berserk, and Shinji Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Sorry, what I meant to say was the majority of the main cast of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Maybe you're starting to see why I talk about NGE so much. Anyways, if you want to see how these great works are actually written, then click the video on screen right now.